Hello, hello, hello. Right, take Shine So Loud Yet Still So Quiet. Take one. Audio track. I'm watching a rough cut I made a couple of nights ago of a film which I hope is going to be called Shine So Loud Yet Still So Quiet, or well, it will include those words. The first word will be shine and the last word will be quiet. The film that I'm watching is a it's an edited version of a DV tape which I had digitised a couple of years ago, and my intention in doing that was to create a documentary film about a band from Birmingham that I was involved with called Einstellung. I first heard about Einstellung when a female friend, whose opinion I admire and respect a great deal, sent me an email inviting me to see them play at a pub called the Flapper and Firkin. That was on the gig took place on the 30th of March 2006, and I was there wearing one of my best shirts, I should add. Take from that what you will. And within 30 seconds of the first chord being struck, I had moved from the back of the room to a little bit. By the end of the first number, I was in. I was ready, willing and able to get involved. And after the gig, the first member of the band that emerged from the sort of the backstage area was the bass player, and I went up to him and I gave him a little sort of card I had with my phone number and email address on it, and a photocopy of it was a photocopy of a badge that I found in a record shop. It said, "Don't stick labels on the records." And that was my business card, as it were, as you could call it. It was just my contact card, really, for giving to girls. And I said, "Look, I don't know how I can help, but I can help. And if you want me to help, I will help. There's my details, get in touch." Now, that lad, I already could tell he was a little bit older than me. He was the bass player. We can see him now. There he is. Oh, there's the guitarist. More on him later. So they finished loading up their gear. I'd left by the time they left, and I went to a pub called the Sunflower Lounge with the lady I was with that night, and we talked about why she used to manage bands, what had made her manage bands, and why she thought it was a worthwhile thing to do. And all the time I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to go for it. This time I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it if they want me to. Now, a couple of days later, I got a call, and I was invited to go along and hang out with them. And I did that, and I hung out with them, and I discovered that they'd already recorded a debut album. It was in the can. It was done and dusted. It was being manufactured by a record label in Australia called Chatterbox. And that they were very pleased about it. And when I heard it, no, hang on a minute, no. I received a phone call, then I received a CDR in the post, which I've still got obviously, of an unmastered version of an album called Wings of Desire, which they were arranging to release with Chatterbox Records in Australia. And I was delighted for them. I said, "Well, you don't need me then, do you?" Well, no, I did. At this stage I hadn't said to them, "I want to manage you." I never said that to them. What I said was, "I can help you in whatever way you see fit. Let's talk." I think the next significant happening was the Supersonic Festival in 2005. Two of the bass player and the one of the guitarists attended, and let's just say we kept our distance from each other at that event because I'd been told to back off. I think by that stage I'd been told to back off. So I hardly spoke to them, but I was in the theatre where we watched Michael Rother play, It was no surprise that they were in the theatre for that performance. Other performances I particularly note from that edition of the 2005 edition of the Supersonic Festival was broadcast on a big stage. Now, I'd seen broadcast several times on small stages, but on a big stage, that young woman who led the band and tragically died a very young death really fulfilled her potential on that big stage. They were promoting the third album, The Noise Made by People, or The Heart. No. When you talk about broadcast, you have to remember that the first album is not an album, it's a compilation. Although it sounds like an album. It sounds like an album for autumn. The second album, the yellow one, the first album, the yellow one, sounds like a record for, I don't know, I sold it ages ago. Haven't listened to it in a long time. But I have listened to the Ha Ha Sound and Tender Buttons and Future Crayon, which I have on CD. Anyway, back to the action. Who was playing at Supersonic in 2005 that I can remember? Knives played at Supersonic in 2005. Knives fronted by Thomas Wagstaff, one of the most talented guitarists and rock and roll performers of his generation in Birmingham. Currently now a talented videographer and photographer who owes me a favour. If love will tear us apart, then that's another. I gave Thomas about £1,000 worth of Joy Division records. No, it wasn't that much. I gave Tom Wag a chunk of Joy Division vinyl, shall we say, as a gift to celebrate his marriage and him turning his life around. Anyway, back to Wines to Lung. Who are they? Never heard of them. Here we go. Now, the bit I'm watching right now, this is where they're actually writing their second album. I was allowed to be in the room with a video camera whilst they wrote their second album. That's access. In the sociological game, we call that access. Right, and as you can hear, the DV camera I was using, which was borrowed from a mate called Tony, doesn't have a limiter on the microphone. Now I know what a limiter is because Steve, the bass player, explained what a limiter was in a YouTube post. A fan, an old friend of mine actually from my hometown. Hello, Colin. Went to the gig. The gig that you saw at the start of this documentary was in Oxford, and I borrowed the same DV camera, obviously same bloody tape, and I had a shot list, and I got all these. I wanted to get particular shots. Now here's an interesting story. In that first footage you saw, I wish that the camera obviously wasn't going to pick it up, but whilst I was filming, a full pint of Guinness vibrated from the you have like a rail, a shelf for people to put drinks on at the back of venues. There was a full pint of Guinness on the shelf, and during their set, during the opening number, it vibrated from the back of that shelf to the front of the shelf and fell on the floor. Full pint of Guinness. The reviewer of that gig from the Night Shift magazine in Oxford used the phrase "tore the venue a new arsehole." The lads played in Oxford 4 times, and 3 of them were triumphs. One of them was a bit of a dance.
And then when we all come in, we all need to go bam, bam.
We don't talk about dance.
I got real bad ears, so
We talk about birds.
just keep an eye on him then. So just try and make it louder for tonight. Yeah, okay. Go for it. Was that too fast? Yeah. Sure, I think it's.
Just going for a quick wee. Where were we? future.
What we need to do, dude, on that bit is it needs to be synced more, doesn't it? Now, don't be saying what you're playing because you're struggling. It's not as pronounced.
Yeah, I must admit I do struggle with that. Yeah.
So maybe, but what we
With
don't.
that tune, with that riff.
Yeah.
What we need to do though is.
Right, cut. Now that studio is in Hockley and has been used by one Mr. Frank Anthony Iommi Jr., who one of the guitarists described as a bit of a knob jockey. Now this is recording the second album, Und das Rest sind Donner. That is the producer. On the right there, you've got the producer Andy Taylor, and I don't know what he's showing them on the old laptop, but obviously I can't see it, so I wouldn't know. Honest. Right, now what's going on here? You see, the funny thing is, well, it's just, you see, I had my shot list. I had a DV camera, which, you know, I'm not experienced in using. It was a big chunk. It was the size of a very small shoebox. Well, size of a size 5 shoebox or so. It was about 30 centimeters long, about 12 centimeters wide, and 18 centimeters. It was a chunk. That's the other guitarist, Smart. He looks very different these days. He's now been able to sort of expand his horizons beyond his the restrictions of his. He's never had a day job, that lad. He's always been self-employed, and now he's employed on the most remarkable journey that. Well, yeah, he doesn't look like that now. Getting on lip read. Now this, they're recording a single called, but it's, in German it says D Feels Like Home. I can't remember the pronunciation. I can't remember how to say it, but something house. I could go and get the single itself and tell it. Well, actually, it's quite close to hand, surprisingly enough. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. That's interesting. Right, so the second single I released was called D Feels Like Home, and this is the only single that I was kind of directly involved in, and my God, what a fuck up. I used to call it the million seller, and I would suggest that it was perhaps one of the best songs to open with. My tongue was firmly in my cheek when I called it the million seller. More on that later. And it was, I proposed that it was released in time for the 2008 Supersonic Festival, so that we could like launch it at the Supersonic Festival. There were numerous, basically it was poorly manufactured and they withdrew it from sale. I think 8 copies were sold at the Supersonic Festival, and they weren't happy with the way that it had been manufactured, so we kind of buried it basically. A video was made for it. Was it? Yeah, a video was made for it as part of a competition, a sort of a talent competition, whereby somebody had sponsored the competition whereby aspiring video producers were teamed up with aspiring bands in Birmingham on a random basis, and they had two weeks to make it. It was called 2 weeks to make it, and I forget who was sponsoring it and stuff, but it was called 2 weeks to make it. We had a bit of as always, a fantastic first meeting, and then unfortunately our videographers, who were based in Coventry, was a 2-man team, and unfortunately one of the teams suffered a horrendous tragedy during the course of those 2 weeks. His partner made every effort possible to complete the project and did so, but when it was just a major balls up. The video was branded with a brand which I would never want to be associated with, frankly. I mean, I benefited from his benefited my arse. I attended his music industry consultation sessions, which were funded by the City Council at the library, the old library, the Ziggurat Library, before it was demolished. And that's another story that I'm not going to tell here, but put it this way, he likes to have a lot of irons in a lot of fires, because he knows that that's how the music business works. You spread yourself as thin as possible, but once you've got the points, once you've got that contract with the points, leave it to the artist. The artist will succeed if it's a talent, and he'll collect the money. And that's what he does. That's what that man does. He spreads himself thin. He gives basic advice. If you try to establish yourself as someone who's, as I was at that time, I returned from London where I'd spent a year running a record label. I knew quite a bit, not as much as him, obviously. Obviously, I could never know as much as that man, but I knew quite a bit. And one time he made me wait outside the room for my allotted slots whilst he... It's difficult to describe this without making him sound like that bloke from Leeds that used to work for the BBC, but he... there was a young lady and her chaperones in the room ahead of me, and I was just thinking, Barry, I could see right through the window, and I was just thinking, don't do it, man, don't do it, do not do it, don't, and he did, he embraced this woman before she left. And then I ran into him at an open mic night in Sutton Coldfield, where he was chaperoning a young girl who can't have been more than 18, and her mother. And he greeted me warmly, and my skin crawled. I never went back to that open mic night, actually, because I thought there was a danger that I might bump into him again. I've said all that without looking at the screen. Now I'm going to return to looking at the screen and see what my mates are doing in that recording studio in Hockley. Oh, he's still trying to nail the guitar part. Meanwhile, oh, there's laughs. There was laughter. There was quite a lot of laughter. I wonder what they're looking at on the internet. You'll never know. That's a nice shot. Because Steve, the guy who's got his back to us there, he is a well-respected music engineering lecturer at South Birmingham College, and it's remarkable when I meet young people who are in the biz in Birmingham. Most of them have got very good words to say about Steve because they were tutored by him. In fact, I've never heard a bad word said against him by one of his former students, and I've spoken to loads of them. Let's see what's happening audio-wise. Now this is the song which you saw being written earlier. It's called To Rock Is Paramount Trip. And when I got my copy of Tony Iommi's autobiography signed at the HMV in Birmingham City Centre, I'd hoped that he would read the post-it note that was attached to it and write To Rock Is Paramount on the first page. And then when I got it home, I thought, no, I should have got him to write for Ken, because it was Ken, my mate Ken, who sort of introduced me to the Tony Iommi story when he came back from a Black Sabbath. On the Monday at school, Ken said, oh, you never guess what I did last night. I went to see Black Sabbath at the Hammersmith. This is in 1986 when we were 14. I was 14, he was 15. And he said, you never guess what I did last night. I went to see Black Sabbath at Hammersmith Odeon. My ears are still ringing. I was like, wow. Not that he had gone to see Black Sabbath, just wow that he'd gone to a gig. And it was on that day, on that Monday, after Black Sabbath played the Hammersmith Odeon in 1986, that Ken explained to me about Tony Iommi's fingertips. So I've known about Tony Iommi's accident since I was 14. That's a fact. Hello, Ken. MXR Phase 90. I like that shot as well. The guy who's standing up is the drummer who now fixes bicycles. He's based in Cannock. His name's Cy Ryder, and he's the public face of the band. Was the public face of the band. They've split up now. What a riff. I should just say that the reason one of the many reasons I was capturing all this footage because I saw it as my job. It wasn't part of the contract that we signed, but I considered it my job, and I'm the extra pair of hands. I'm the person who's not playing, who doesn't have to look after an instrument, who doesn't have to look after an amplifier, who doesn't have to look after effects pedals. I'm the extra pair of hands, and if that extra pair of hands is filled with a camera, all the better, because this kind of footage is the kind of thing that I wanted to make that labels like Southern used to send out, if you order a CD, perhaps a Sun-O CD, perhaps the Grim Robes demos from, you order it from Southern Records after you've seen Sun-O at the Supersonic Festival and thought, fuck me, that's amazing. And the next week you go home and you order, the next week you order the Grim Robes demos from Southern Records via mail order. And it comes with about 3 other CDs as well, DVDs and CDs. You think, what are they doing sending out these? That's incredibly wasteful, isn't it? But it turns out that they're actually promotional DVDs for their forthcoming releases, and they've got their artists in America or wherever to make their own promotional videos so the record label can sell more copies of their records. And I always wonder, to what extent are those promotional clips part of the contract? Or does the label just ask the talented group of young men who they know to be multimedia practitioners, oh, could you just make us a 20-minute promo clip for your next album, please? It'll be really good for us. And those young men go, oh yeah, excellent. I've never made a film before. Yeah, I'll make this film. And they spend 3 weeks making it. And it's not part of the contract. And they don't get paid for it. To the licensee for the manufacture of 1,000 CDs of the album Wings of Desire for worldwide distribution, excluding Australia and New Zealand, using artwork commissioned and owned by the licensee. 4. The fee for this agreement shall be 100 finished copies of the pressing delivered to Einstellung. 5. The licensee will pay mechanical royalties for the manufacture of the CDs to the licensee's publisher. Read and agreed for and on behalf of Capsule Recordings, read and agreed for and on behalf of Einstellung. Now that's dated the 16th of June 2008. Sometime later, I discovered that that plan had changed and that Capsule Recordings were going to manufacture 500 LPs, that's vinyl records, of said album. And that is the story I want to tell. That is the story I want to tell. How a so-called DIY independent record label can completely piss all over an artist. And they did this subtly. And they did it in their own sweet way. And I respect them for it. Because they hold the power. The record label, the licensee, is the one who holds the power. And I knew that. I knew that when the two ladies from that record label approached me at Popcom on a business trip that they were being funded for and I was paying for out of my own pocket. It cost me £600 that business trip, and I made it in order to secure a license for Einstellung to release Wings of Desire in worldwide, excluding Australia. And they waited until then to tell me that they were interested in doing it. Why on earth they didn't do it down the fucking pub in Birmingham is beyond me. Well, it's not beyond me actually. It's about power. It's about class. It's about we've got you by the balls and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's Capsule Recordings. Right, to end this half-hour documentary, because it has to be half an hour, I'm going to replay the footage from the Audioscope concert, which was at the start of this tape, and I edited prior to, now it's unedited, but I've had to make a couple of cuts to make this all fit. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. My name's Rob Horrocks. Good night.